Welcome to the jungle, presented by Lost Ark. Your Odyssey begins today by clicking the link in the description. Make sure to do that and support us. Hey everyone, dGon, Monty, and Dom here to break down the world of competitive League of Legends as, again, LEC already done, so they get to just sit back and watch as they're waiting for their playoffs to begin. So a lot of focus here, LPL, LCK, and of course, the LCS, because not necessarily the play on the Rift, but big announcements coming out of someone that Monty had a chance to sit down and talk with. Philip Aram, we'll call him Aram, is the new head of the LCS Players Association, who will be now getting non-Riot funding to try and further the Players Association here. So Monty, I wanted to defer to you. Kind of what does this signing mean to the average LCS fan and to the players?
Oh, yeah, if you want the long form, go watch The Four Horsemen, is the answer. The short answer is that basically what they're trying to do is that every players association is funded by selling the group likenesses, image, naming, likeness rights in professional sports. So like the NFL Players Association or the MLB Players Association, these kind of things. So they don't extract dues from the players. What they do is they're like, okay, we will sell you all of the players' rights to make a video game, make Madden, right? Or we will sell all of the rights to make trading cards, right? Or who knows what you would do in an esports space. I will sell all of the players' rights
NFTs.
to make what?
You'll make all the players into NFTs.
Yeah, NFTs or body pillows or an erotic visual novel. Who knows where it's going?
We know those pop.
Look, I'm just
Funko Pops.
looking for my dating sim where I can finally date Bjergsem. So who knows what they're gonna do? Is my point. That's if I was trying to make money, I would explore that in the world of esports. Truly. So
Dating Bjergsem, okay.
Yeah, that's right. Sometimes my fetish just comes out on air, Dom.
Makes sense. I mean, like you could be like TSM and what last week.
Look, I've just been trying to neg TSM for years, so Bjergsem would love me. All right. Anyway,
okay.
Back to the point. Back to the point. Basically, what they're doing is they have acquired these rights. They've partnered with one team, which is an agency that is owned by the Major League Baseball Players Association and the NFL Players Association. So they're used to making these kind of deals. They were the ones making these big Fnatic deals. Fnatic, the sports collectible company for all the trading cards that have been going on.
And that's the same one that does these hoodies.
Yeah,
by the way.
Yeah, and Dom's
super comfortable.
Seahawks jersey. Thank you very much for Russell Wilson as a Broncos fan. By
the way,
that one.
Yep. It's over for the Seahawks.
Hey, you might get Deshaun Watson. So.
Look, I was only really a Seahawks fan because I liked Russell Wilson. So maybe I'm gonna be a Broncos fan.
Monty, let's get him some Broncos here, baby.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
We can all 3D Broncos fans now. It'll be great. So anyway, that's what's going on with the Players Association. Obviously, this is exciting because we don't want them funded by Riot because that creates a conflict of interest between Riot and the Players Association. And critically, this could advance. This could advance towards a union because it's not a union right now. And we cannot have things like a salary cap or a player draft until they are actually a union. But if they have a revenue stream and they can go into collective bargaining, then they might be able to become a union because that would be good. I think a draft would be really exciting, frankly, for the LCS. I think it would be a great way for people to give a shit about things like amateur play. It would give bad teams a chance to get good players, which they don't currently do, because if you're a bad team in LCS, the players won't even agree to play for you. They'd literally rather play for a shitty academy team than play for your LCS team. And so if you don't have a way to like get a promising player to then entice other players, you're kind of just like stuck at the bottom forever, even if you spend money. Which is why people like to shit on bottom tier LCS teams, but oftentimes they don't really have a choice or an easy way to get out of that situation. So I think it would help a lot of things, frankly. And I'm excited to see where it goes, because even though this is just a first step, we'll have to judge it as it goes on. At least they're doing something for the first time ever.
With the Players Association, Dom, what is something that you think you needed advocacy for as a player that you think maybe if you had a strong bargaining partner, someone to advocate for you, what would be some of those things?
Well, I mean, I think when we were playing, I think what Monty spoke to about collective bargaining would obviously be something really good in the past, because back then, you know, there was 200, 300,000 viewers watching LCS and we were getting paid shit. But now with the salaries increasing, I'm not sure exactly what they would be looking for out of this. But I mean, at least now they can do something, because before, obviously, it was the Players Association that was going to be owned by Riot, that would somehow be like negotiating against Riot in like in circumstances which doesn't make any sense, because why would Riot ever have allowed the Players Association to do anything that actually went against something that Riot technically wanted to do themselves? But I mean, at least now that there's a break in between it, we can see if it actually becomes useful, because I think up until this point in League of Legends, it's been pretty useless to have the Riot NA, what is it, LCSPA or something?
Yeah, the LCSPA. So now that it's not funded by Riot, there'll be still some, I guess now there's progress that can be made. I would say that the thing that I found interesting, again, go check out the Four Horsemen with Monty, Thorne, Richard Lewis, and Philip Byram. It's a three-party system, because you have the owners, you have the players, and you have Riot. And at the end of the day, Riot's the one that's kind of still making those decisions. But now that they're gaining, now there's a stronger possibility to gain more leverage to go get those things. And it all starts with selling those name and likeness rights to these things to create revenue. So anyway, a exciting
also can probably will create cool things for fans too that didn't exist before, because before you would have to go like player by player, team by team, if you wanted to make like trading cards or NFTs or whatever, which is a giant pain in the ass, and nobody's actually going to do that because you couldn't get them all to agree. Well, now they're just sold as one giant bundle, so it makes it a lot more likely. So if anything, it's going to increase the money, I think, that the players and receive, and the teams too. Because the teams still have to sell their like logos and team rights to these projects if they want to use the teams in them.
Right. So a boon for all, and almost kind of uniting owners and players for the first time in a while against Riot in the future. We'll see what happens. Okay, let's move on to the rift of our North American League. LCS, the big match that we had talked about coming into it, it was Team Liquid and Cloud9 going head-to-head on Sunday. A big matchup, and it seemed like a lot of fun. People lived up to the expectations. What did you think of it, Dom?
I thought it was really good. I think that was one of the best matches we've had in LCS in a while, and it makes you sad that every other match isn't at the same level, because I feel like this is what would actually make people be excited about LCS. I mean, I think it was a pretty decent match from the beginning to the end. I mean, this is one of the few matches where players are relatively even skill by position, where a lot of times when you watch LCS, it's like, who's the import shitting on the other? Like, who is Summit playing against? If Summit is playing against anyone who's not an import, he is going to absolutely fist them. If he plays against Licorice, Fake God, Kumo, Revenge, I mean, you saw what he did to Revenge. Revenge is probably the best NA top laner. Like,
I do want to talk about that too, because people have been shitting on Revenge, and I do not think that is right. But anyway, continue.
Okay, sure. But I mean, my point is that versus TL, at least Whippo was able to contain Summit in some regard, and they weren't able to just win by having a massive top gap, which will actually push C9 to actually improve. So I think that it was overall a good match. It was a little bit of a cock block that Whippo ended up getting caught right before like it was going to be third Drake, but then they ended up obviously getting Baron off of it, because there was an interesting dynamic in the game where C9 could not actually match TL split push. TL actually won both side lanes with the Ryze and the Jax at that point. Trin couldn't really match either, so the Victor was actually having to match the enemy team's Jax. So there was an interesting dynamic where TL couldn't really team fight. They weren't strong enough to actually win the team fight, but they actually had the advantage in the side lanes. So I wanted to see if they were going to be able to do anything in the next about like 5-6 minute window before Soul spawns to leverage their split push. Also, they had a TP advantage because obviously the Tryndamere took Ghost Flash. So I think that it would have been really interesting to see if Whippo didn't get caught, if TL made any plays, if they actually were aware of what their advantages were in game, or whether they were just going to, let C9 slowly win by forcing objectives on spawn.
Also, the timing was unfortunate, because I think that we were moving towards a game state where we would have seen probably a pretty even 5v5 had it gone on just slightly longer. And so in a way, it did feel like we were robbed of a really compelling end game. But I think Team Liquid was really smart in the way they got themselves back into it. Like they dissolved an early 4,000 gold lead in this game through intelligent lane assignments later in the game. And it just whetted my appetite for a best of 5 between these teams, because even though I think the end result was kind of disappointing, it's not how I wanted the game to end or to swing. A lot of the game was quite good, especially in the early stages. And it really felt like a very active and dynamic push and pull between the teams, which I think is rare. Like you feel like the teams were fighting each other and, you know, compromising in certain parts of the map to take advantages in other parts of the map, which is rare, I would say, in an LCS game where you feel like both teams are making good decisions with the available information and game state.
When we look at this matchup, like you said, Dom, a lot of these players are evenly skilled across the board coming into it, except maybe CoreJJ and Winsome. So who would be your standout player, good or bad?
I would definitely say Winsome was the standout player for me, considering the fact that he had a really poor Tahm Kench game in the previous day against Immortals. Normally, when you see this with a player, they int one game, they're going to take it into scrims, they're going to try to improve and bring it back to stage at a later date where they feel more comfortable on the champion. And I thought it showed a lot of poise to be able to play the champion again into such a high-skilled player, you know, not really being afraid of what might happen or getting exposed, and just having the confidence to realize that, you know, these things are fixable. The mistakes in game are easy for him to actually adapt to. And I thought that he actually had a really good Tahm Kench game. I think he played really well. I think the eats were timely. I think the way that he was playing on the side lane, even with Fudge, was really smart, where he was positioning in a way where he could still help Fudge, and he could allow Fudge to play a lot more aggressive because of that. So I really think that this was, like, at least to me, probably his best game of the split. I know he had an Alistar game earlier that people were raving about, but I think that quality of competition really matters when it comes to, like, at least how I judge players, and being able to perform in such a high level game at a really high level means to me that at least he's got the mindset that you want to see in a player. He's got the ability to play under pressure, which I think is crucial for somebody who's, you know, a rookie.
I think it's also important to note that this is probably the most competitive game of his entire career, because if you look, I mean, you have to remember that he's basically a rookie when it comes to tier 1 play. And sure, you can make jokes, oh, you know, Korean Challenger is basically the same as, you know, this LCS quality, which is probably true of some of the worst teams in LCS, but it's definitely not true of this iteration of Team Liquid. And it's especially not true going up against a lane that consists of Hansama and CoreJJ, right? So I think this is probably the highest level game that he's played. And because remember, the previous time was not with CoreJJ in the lineup. So I think having a big game in an important moment like this is a very good sign for him.
Time for pop quiz. It's dGon's Fact of the Week, sponsored by nobody. Other than Whippo, who pulled out Jax for his 10th most played champion, who else in the LCS has played 10 champions to lead the LCS?
Is it another top laner?
No, it is not.
I guess it has to be a mid laner then. Interesting. Actually, I don't know this one.
Yeah, you all at home, pause the video right now. This is where you go and guess. Put your guesses in the comments below.
Is it Tukui?
I don't think it'd be Tukui. I think he's been playing a lot of mages.
It is not Tukui.
He has, but he's played a lot of different ones.
He is at 8. There
could it be Bjergsem?
Bjergsem is not. He's at 8 as well. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players at 9. 9 champions, but only 2 players. Whippo and this player at 10.
I don't know.
All right. Maybe I got one
this week.
Finally.
Could it be Palafox?
Palafox is one of the players with 9.
Oh,
very
man.
Close. Reason why I brought it up here at this segment, the other player to play 10 champions, unique champions, Fudge. Fudge.
I should have guessed that because of the Ivern Soraka.
Yeah, the Ivern Soraka.
That's right. He's only played Corki, Ryze, and Ari twice, but then Ivern, Lucian, Orianna, Soraka, Victor, Zillion,
Oh,
and
I forgot about the
Irelia.
Lucian game. The
Yeah,
Lucian game
I should have
was
guessed that.
tragic.
Actually, I'm dumb.
Yeah, and then interestingly enough, Blabber and Winsome also at 9 unique champions played. So they're pretty high up there, and then Summit's right there at the top with 8. So Cloud9 has been playing all over the place with their champions. I kind of brought that up because I wanted to ask about performance of Fudge and Whippo. Whippo pulling out yet another champion. The Jax didn't quite get to scale, and Summit was able to punish a little bit more on the Tryndamere. What did you feel? Let's start with Whippo. How did you feel about Whippo's performance in this big game? Big game here.
I think people will focus on his questionable plays at the end, but also he was in a pretty difficult spot, I think, for a lot of this game, given how the early game went and the amount of gold on Summit. And I think he did pretty well recovering from that overall and playing to the win conditions of the roster, as Dom alluded to earlier, with the possibility of pushing out the side lanes. And also, I mean, in a long enough game, he's going to be incredibly impactful in 5v5 fights, and with the TP advantage, it should have been. You would think that this game was inching towards a Team Liquid win before that happened. But here's the thing about Whippo, is like, he's always going to do that. That's just who he is, right? And he's an extremely good player, and sometimes those things that Whippo does are going to win you games, and sometimes those things that Whippo does are going to lose you games. And this was an instance of losing a game. I still have a lot of faith in Whippo in like a best of series, but I just think it's who he is. You're not going to change that.
Wonder, as long as he's not against Wonder, I can see him doing fine in a best of series. But
no
I feel
wonder
like
in this.
Whippo's been having weird weeks. Like, he hasn't been good for a couple weeks now, which is a little bit worrying because, you always wonder with an import like this, like how much of them branching out and having like underperformances is them just like, not respecting the level of competition, or just kind of like coming here, dominating everyone, thinking that like he's so much ahead of the competition that he's trying to find like other angles to improve on. So like the Shyvana game, I feel like he didn't get much out of this. I think this game was 2 really bad decisions, which pretty much cemented his team losing the game. And it's a little bit worrying that that a team with such experience like TL wasn't able to find what I think the play was in this game, which was I would have, since they had pressure on both side lanes, I would have definitely liked to see both solo laners play on the same side lane together. So when you do this, normally what you'll do is you'll have like the Ryze push in top, recall on a good item value, and then he'll run bot with the Jax and then dive the Victor as 2 when everyone's in this 1-3-1, because you actually have the push in both lanes, and no one was able to do this in this game. So I think that was the macro play that I was waiting for TL to execute, and they never did. I mean, maybe they would have at a later point into the game, because normally when you're in a game, it's harder to identify immediately like what the situations are and like what your advantages are. So maybe they would have actually been able to identify this like in that 5-6 minute window that we talked about at the end of this game, between like 29 minutes and like 35 when Soul was going to spawn. But yeah, we just didn't get to see that. So I definitely want to see like more out of Whippo. I think that he's definitely the second best top laner in NA outside of obviously Summit. So I just want to see him playing more like that and just abusing people kind of the same way Summit does, because it looks like Summit just really is not having a bad game. I mean, he had a couple weird games at the beginning of the season. Yeah. I mean, even the Gwen game, I thought was actually a pretty good game.
All things considered.
I think that's a game that I would consider a good game. Like, if you're pressured a lot and you're in a matchup where you don't have flash and you're counterpicked and you're still actually being useful in the game, I think that's a much better game than, for example, Whippo's bad game, which was the Shyvana game to me, where it's like, oh, like, not only did you get solo killed, but also you like completely ran it down in a team fight, ulted into 5 people, and suddenly your team like almost lost to Immortals because of it. So yeah, I just want to see Whippo bring back a little bit more consistency, because the last couple weeks of performances have not been super, I guess, like, promising.
I would say dominant. Like, and I think your radar is right there, Dom, because when you look at his opponents in the top lane for the last 2 weeks specifically, it was Someday, it was then Revenge, who had the split pushing game. You then had Impact, and then obviously Summit. So from here on out, it's Jenkins, it's Kumo, it's Licorice, it's Fake God, and then he closes it off against Huni at the end. So I think he played the top half, and it's literally bottom half after this for Bwipo. Let's see. I think the other game I wanted to bring up was just a wild one to kick off week 6. It was the battle of the Osh 80 carries and Golden Guardians and 100 Thieves, where they were just kind of going back and forth there. Dom, I see you nodding your head. Did you have thoughts on this kind of crazy throw fest here by both those squads?
I think it was just the most North American game that we've had all split, where no one went to a side lane for like 20 minutes. It was fucking crazy. So when I watch this game, it's really disheartening. I mean, this is a game where I'm watching it. I'm like, yeah, I mean, 100 Thieves needs some type of change in either like mid, jungle, and support. I mean, I don't really think you would ever change Closer because he's your best player, but this team's macro is actually terrible. Most of the time, like they don't. They were never good at macro even last year when they won a championship. They're still bad at the same things. They make really, really outrageous decisions, even versus bad teams. Like they can't even out macro bottom tier LCS teams consistently. Like they have to win by just being better players. And I don't really see this ever solving itself. Like if it's 9 months in, you haven't made any improvements on this front, I don't see how suddenly you're going to be making improvements. Like it's going to click 10 months in. Oh, now we got it. This is what we need to do, because they don't ever make the right decision. And there's only a certain amount of like decisions you can make in these spots. So you would think that they would just sometimes RNG their way into a correct decision, but still somehow they can't fucking do it. So I don't know.
I think it's a huge indictment of 100 Thieves that their win condition in this game was essentially hope that Golden Guardians somehow has worse macro and then opts into grouped front to back team fights over and over and over and over and over again. And then also that they randomly steal Dragon Soul away with a Lee Sin Q. I think that
didn't even matter. Like,
I think it did matter. I think that one did matter. Like there were fights after that I think could have been changed had Golden Guardians gotten the Dragon Soul. But I agree that it's not the biggest factor in this game. But if that's your win condition, you are going to be hopeless at an international level in the current meta, because we see so much. And we'll talk about these games later on in LCK and LPL, where there's a massive emphasis on split pushing and pick compositions right now among the best teams in the world. And Golden Guardians was effectively playing a very similar composition to the comps that we see coming out of Asia, with a big emphasis on the Kai'Sa. But for Golden Guardians, I literally just had Ole on Summoning Insight, which you can watch, and we talk about this game specifically. And they know, what they did wrong. Like, it's egregious that you're not pushing out with your Gnar and your Ryze in the side lanes and hovering.
Or your Nocturne. Like, even their jungler can side lane in this game.
Sure, but he can also just hover. As long as you control vision and no one knows where the Nocturne is, he presents a constant unknown threat, and that's always been true, right? He can threaten 2 lanes at the same time in a dark jungle. It becomes very difficult to play the game. If there's also a Kai'Sa that can engage on you from half the map away, it's very, very dangerous, and you have to play out these compositions properly. And I understand what they thought, which is like, surely with a 10k advantage, we should be able to win a front-to-back team fight, which it did surprise me that they couldn't do that with a massive gold advantage that they had. But after you learn that the first time, you don't continuously do it over and over again after that. So, I mean, I think I'm disappointed in Golden Guardians, but if anything, I'm even more disappointed in 100 Thieves. There's no way you win this game in almost any other circumstance.
Yeah, I mean, the laning was also bad. Like, Someday got completely shit on by a Gnar. Like, I know that Gnar is not supposed to lose to Sion or anything, but the fact that on the Sion side of it, he's just, like, Someday's down 40 CS in lane, like, that is fucking crazy. To Licorice Gnar, like, Licorice has not even been a dominant top laner in NA the split. So I thought that was really bad. And then, yeah, for Golden Guardians, I mean, I think they massively over-prioritized the Cloud Soul. Like, I think that in this situation, they had a full wave bot and they have Baron. Like, they can easily just like end the game, or they can threaten the end and put pressure on the situation by sending one person bot. He starts ushering in that wave. What's going to happen now? Like, now you have a huge wave that's stacked. He can, like, if you use the right member, let's say you just even put the Nocturne there, you put the Ryze there, they're simultaneously pressuring, but they can still join the fight. And that was just a little a little pocket of time in the game where they can actually use the fact that they have all these semi-globals on their team. I mean, they have Teleport, they have Ryze, they have Nocturne ult, and they didn't go bot. There's an open inhib mid, there's a huge bot wave. Like, just send someone bot and don't flip the whole soul. But I don't know.
What's crazy about this, Dom, is it's like every moment of this game is just like it's like a fractal of bad decision making, where you zoom in and it's just more bad decision making, and then you zoom out and it's still just like bigger bad decision making. So even on a micro level, if you go back and watch the Dragon Soul fight, we could argue, like you're saying, that they shouldn't have even been there. But if you actually look at the way it plays out in terms of their team communications, Pridestalker literally like red smites closer on Lee Sin in the pit. And then after that happens, Lost, instead of, it was clear Pridestalker was looking to fight because the Dragon's like at 2.5k HP and he's trying to push closer out of the pit. Lost then starts autoing the Dragon Soul on Kai'Sa and then gets the Dragon low enough in order for the steal to occur while Pridestalker's smite is down. So they're not even communicating clearly what their focus is on these fights that are happening. Half the team is trying to push them out of the pit and then get a safe Dragon. Lost is just literally not even autoing or trying to attack anybody who can actually, affect this team fight. So they're splitting their focus even in the micro sense.
Yep. I mean, look at the difference. Look at the difference between a Lost Kai'Sa and a Luger Kai'Sa. We saw 2 games of Luger Kai'Sa. He's just completely 1v9ing the entire fucking game, dragging his corpse of a team across the finish line.
That's true.
And then on the other side of it, you have Lost Kai'Sa, who's dying in a team fight solo to a Lee Sin with flash and ulti up. Like, I've never seen a Lee Sin solo kill any AD carry besides for like, maybe something completely immobile like a Jinx when he's separated from his team. But how is Kai'Sa dying in his whole team 1v4 to a Lee Sin? Like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, it's just so weird to watch. This game was the game where I'm like, yep, Golden Guardians just actually are back to sucking. I mean, after this, they're tied for 7th place with CLG, and they just lost to CLG on Sunday. So I'd say effectively they are just a bottom team in the NA again. We'll see what they're able to do this next weekend. I think this next weekend is very easy for them if they're not able to win games against either FlyQuest or Dignitas. Like, yeah, I think that just means that by definition, at that point, you are just a bottom team in North America.
I mean, they should have won this game. I don't think it's outrageous to suggest that they can fix some of the things, because it took a lot of things to go wrong for them in this game for them to lose to 100 Thieves. Like, a lot. Yeah. You fix one or two of those things, you win the game.
Yeah, but I feel like 100 Thieves is bad. Like, that's the problem for me. Is like, I don't think 100 Thieves is good at all. So like,
yeah, but all these teams are bad, Dom. You just have to pick the
less bad, the lesser of the evils.
Exactly.
I mean, maybe they're all bad. Like, do I actually think the Golden Guardians is going to beat Dignitas though this weekend? I think Dignitas, I think Dignitas bot lane actually looks pretty strong. I would say they're probably a top 4 bot lane in NA right now. I can see them losing.
Are they strong, or in the Immortals game, did Immortals just into 4v2 dive? These are the questions we ask ourselves.
I mean, they were strong before that, though.
Dignitas made that happen, Monty. They made them do it.
Well, I mean, I think that the game where they looked a lot better was the game versus TSM. I mean, they were shitting on them, but I mean, I guess everyone shits on Tactical these days. But still, like, I think in general,
High doesn't shit on Tactical. High stood up for Tactical and made Huni stand in front of the class and draw why Tactical dying in that late game fight wasn't his fault.
This is why it's really good that nobody is there to challenge High's narrative about these things, because there's nothing wrong with what High is saying. Oh yes, Huni should have been walking up there, but nobody asks the question of, if Huni isn't there, then why did Tactical walk up? Why is he there?
No, I mean, look, fuck all of that. Like, what are we talking about? Like, like positioning and all this shit. How about you're a fucking professional AD carry and a Lux through a max range binding, and you have a fucking Gale Force if push comes to shove, and you have a Lantern? How about you just fucking dodge the binding like somebody with a mouse and a fucking keyboard? Like, how about that?
See, that's why like I was like actually outraged at the segment, because like I understand, like, first off, props to Huni for like coming up and doing it. Like, that was props. I love Huni. Like, I actually feel bad for Huni because he's not He's probably playing the best out of everybody on his team right now. But
sure, he deserves it though. Like he's phoned it in so many splits before that I feel like he deserves to just like have like, oh, ones if things don't balance, ones if you don't get like you don't fall upward for like the last 4 years of your career. What happens then? Oh shit, you're actually in a situation where you're not winning. Like now you're finally just fucking losing. Deserved. I'm telling you.
So you think that Huni is reaping the cosmic justice right now? He's getting the karma. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I think God is punishing Huni directly. That's what I think that he is.
Well, he's not punishing God. I'll tell you, God sure ain't punishing Huni's wallet. So
yeah,
that's true.
But jokes aside, like the narrative that was being spun there to like make TSM seem better I thought was just outrageous. It was just outrageous.
Was it making TSM seem better? Like I think that they were trying to like pass around the blame. It's like, oh, maybe it's a team thing, but it's like, yes, like people should definitely be zoning for the AD carry so the AD carry can hit. Like I agree with that on a fundamental level. I think High's correct on that. But like your AD carry has to play with their peripherals plugged in. Like that is necessary.
Or if they're not going to do that, simply don't walk up in that situation. Like there are many choices that can be made. It wasn't as binary as they made it sound.
It's a max range Lux binding, guys. Like
I know, but like watching Huni sit there and be like know that
it was my answer.
Yeah. And then just like nod and be like, yeah, I should have done that. Like I was like, oh, Huni, I'm a fan now. I wish that he was just fucking real as hell and be like, I don't know, bro. Like you think our AD carry should not be able to dodge this binding? Like just challenge High on it. Like you really think that a professional AD carry should be able to not dodge this max range Lux Q? Lux Q is not even some super fast, like it's not a blitzcrank hook where it's like faster. Like, no, this shit is like pretty slow missile speed. Like he's positioning on the opposite side, so it's not like a close range. It is a max range Lux Q. Please fucking dodge it. And then also, like, I love how every single time that TSM gets criticized in any way, they just throw in little bits of like communication. Like it's like, oh well, so I think there was actually a communication issue where like Spica said he was actually coming around because he was afraid to walk in front of like the whole enemy team. They always sprinkle that in.
Like around the jungle. What the fuck?
But like, what the fuck are we talking about? This is communication. This isn't communication, bro. This is playing League of Legends. You should be able, like in a solo queue game, right? Let's imagine you're in solo queue and your AD carry does that. Is no one gonna type to the AD carry? You think somebody's gonna be like, actually, Spica, it was your fault. Like you should have been zoning. Like, no, what the fuck? Like, come on, you just can't get hit by that shit.
Yeah,
Monty's like 45 years old and he hasn't played this game in the last 5 years and he could dodge that shit.
I have terrible mechanics. That's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah, and he would dodge it. So like, what's your excuse?
I think that segment is a lot of fun, and I appreciate High for stepping up and being able to break it down and talk to the players in a way that they're like that made Huni accept all the blame for that, and also big props to Huni, who probably just got lambasted in review and then stood out there and then got lambasted publicly by High being like, so what could you have possibly been talking about other than lining up here? And I don't. Yeah, we should have done that.
I just find these segments just like, I don't care if you this is one of the core problems with Riot products, right? In any game, in any region of League of Legends, right? Is that I understand why you don't want to antagonize the player that's there, but there has to be somebody who has the courage after that segment is over on the fucking desk to be like, I really don't agree with that. And it's not a controversial opinion, but there has to be some other narrative that is presented there, right? It's ridiculous.
I like the segments, honestly. I just take the segments for what they are. Like, at least I think the Blabber segment was really good. I just don't understand why they're doing it with like the losing team on a play from like yesterday and today, where like they haven't even gone to like review it yet. I think that was a little bit weird.
Here's the reason why: because they've already picked that person because they have the play from yesterday ready. So the person has to opt into it whether they
had
win
the live
or
play. Like, they didn't have
I'll push back on that, Monty. I feel like they would be able to get the right player whenever they wanted. I feel like they chose Huni because because
They did
Huni would
Blabber. They
answer
did
it?
Blabber from the same day, right? Like, wasn't Blabber's whole pro view about the Volibear game that he had just played? Like,
Yeah, the
that
red
same
buff
day?
No, they do
unleashing,
both.
yeah.
They did both. They did the previous day and the current day. What I'm saying is they probably picked a clip from the previous day and informed the player, and then they had to, while the game was going on, they picked a different clip to add to it.
Yeah,
That's usually how
because
production works. I could be wrong.
No. But I would say you're right on this one because the TSM game, that play specifically was the last game. The last
Yes.
game of the day. So they couldn't do it then. So they're like, all right, we'll just get Huni to do it now. Oh no, there's more plays that we can review in the EG
I don't
game.
know. Anyway.
From
Wait, did
Sunday.
they actually do the day before for the Blabber play? I thought it was just the. Maybe, I'll have to look at it.
No, I'm
afterwards.
talking about the Huni
Oh.
one.
The Huni one. The Blabber play was same day. The Huni
Yeah, it was
one,
all same day though. Like there
Yeah,
wasn't
it was
any
all same day.
section. Okay, all right.
but they couldn't do the TSM, the tactical play because that was against Dignitas and it was the last game of the day. They weren't going to pull him in to stay later on Saturday evening. Well, if you feel like you want more content better than what you're seeing from the LCS, and sometimes where you're making people to stand just in front and make fun of them and you feel bad, make sure to subscribe to Dexerto because we're making fun of things and we don't have someone here that feels bad. So it's all just good feelings here.
You feel a
on
little
the
bad.
Broadcast. I feel a little bad sometimes, especially when we dive into
You feel
like
worse than
FlyQuest, which I don't want to dive into too much, but I will clump them into our next segment, which are our squads that are currently on losing streaks. So we hit Golden Guardians, we hit TSM. We will quickly brush over the O2 week for FlyQuest, but then Immortals is on a 5-game losing streak. And Monty, I agree with the sentiment that you've seen going around. A lot of blame is being put onto Revenge on the top side of the map.
What did Revenge do to you guys? Seriously.
Who is like put the team in multiple opportunities to win, and they just haven't been able to. But then for some reason he gets the flame.
He did have a bad game versus Summit and Z9. Like that's I feel like Summit has been gapping a lot of people though. I think Revenge probably had a worse game than normal, but I think if you look at the season as a whole, and certainly if you look at the game against Dignitas, like he was their only win condition at the end. Like, look at what happened to this poor man. Like his bot dies, then he has to teleport bot in order to fix the fucking problem. He goes top lane as Aurelia. He's 2-0. He's the only hope in this game. Then all of his team goes and has disastrous 4v2, like terrible dive in the bottom lane. And he's the only fucking hope, guys. Like, what do you want Revenge to do? He can't stop his team from like getting completely wrecked in bot lane multiple times a game. He already saved one of the saved it one time. If you actually look at his entire like breadth of work over this season, as Dom alluded to before, he's probably the best native top laner. He hasn't been getting a lot of help overall. He actually is, in terms of damage percentage as a top laner, and this has been skewed obviously by people playing Enchanter top lane, so we have to say that first up and foremost, but it's because his team has been relying on him as a carry a lot of the time. He's second only to Summit in terms of damage percentage as a top laner. Even in absolute damage, he's third behind Bwipo in terms of damage per minute. He has been funneled resources. Interestingly, Power of Evil is also very, very high in damage percentage. He's actually number 1 in the entire league, which is curious given his itemization and builds.
It's not that curious to me because like his 80 carries do 0 fucking damage, and normally that's going to be the person.
This is correct. But even in terms of DPM, Dom, he's third. So even in absolute numbers, he still is actually outputting. So it's not just in percentage. But yes, his 80 carries are 2 of the bottom 3 players in the league in damage percentage. So yes, that is true. And if you just look at what Immortals has had to work with, like they're put in these positions so often. And like, I don't think Revenge should be clear of criticism. I think when Revenge has had an advantage, look at the Aurelia game, look at the TSM game that they lost. He actually doesn't push his advantage as hard as I think he should a lot of the time. I think he needs to be more aggressive in certain situations. But overall, I would not say that he is the core issue with this roster. And certainly I don't think he is not worthy of being in the LCS. He's a top 5 top laner, guys. Like,
is he top 5? I could see it. I mean, I guess. Yeah. I mean, I just think it's really sad that like the best North American top laner I mean, so the clear top 4 are Bwipo, Summit, Impact, and Someday, right? And then
Right, yeah.
you could say whoever is like 5th, 6th. I mean, there's a huge gap between 4 and 5 though, for sure. On the well, I mean, I guess it's debatable because Someday actually had a pretty bad week, but
he's had a good split though.
Yeah, he's had a good split.
He's had a good split. He's had a good split overall, but I mean, a lot of those games are on Tryndamere. Now teams are banning Tryndamere. You want to see him be able to play things other than Tryndamere. He plays the side into Narc, completely fucking runs it down, gets shit on by Licorice. But anyways, the point I was gonna make is, does anyone else just feel sad watching Revenge versus Summit? Because like Revenge, I think, is like the best NA top laner. Like I really think that even mechanically, he is by far our best one, right? Like Kumo is probably better than Fake God and Jenkins. I think Fake God and Jenkins just like I don't think they're ever like going to be top players in this league. I'm gonna be honest. I think Fake God's going to be bottom tier for the rest of his time that he's in LCS, and then he'll just eventually like fade away, and then we'll just have somebody else replace him. No one will even notice that he's gone.
He's the Lorlo of our era. Anyway, continue.
At least Lorlo streamed and has like personality though. So anyways,
and created Janatop. That was Lorlo.
Yeah, and he created Janatop. Kind of. He sold it for somebody else, but we'll say he created. Like, I just feel sad when I watch Revenge play against Summit, because I go into that game, I'm like, all right, like maybe he could do something, you know? But he just got fucking bodied as hard as possible for the whole fucking game. Like he didn't. There was a moment where he wasn't getting completely shit on by Summit. Solo killed him. Took 5 plates. Took the tier 2 solo. Like they send 4 people top at the end of the game. He's just 1v4ing them. Someone had Triforce and Hullbreaker at like 16 minutes in the fucking game. When I watch this game, I'm like, God damn, bro. Is NA like, is this the best? This is the best North American top laner we have. And that's how, like, it doesn't even look like, it looks like he's never going to be able to beat Summit. That's how it looks in the game. I'm not saying that that's true, but that's just how it feels when you watch. Like, it doesn't feel like he has any advantage in any way. Like, normally you'd see a mechanical advantage out of somebody. You'd be like, oh, he's the young mechanical guy, and he's going to be able to beat like Summit in terms of that. But it's like Summit is just looks like he's better at like every part of top lane.
The Darshan, where it's like, wow, he's playing Grogison. Look at that perfect TP. He's down 100 CS, but he got a great engage for the rest of his team.
Yeah, it was like there was like nothing where I was looking at it. I was like, yeah, Revenge is actually better. Like, what is Revenge better than Summit at in terms of being a top laner?
I mean, nothing. But look, Summit is legitimately one of the best top lane players in the world. It is incredible to me that he even chose to come to North America when he literally would be an upgrade on any of the top laners in any of the top 3 LCK teams objectively. He's an upgrade on, he could be in a potential world championship team, and he's not. So
okay, but let's even take somebody like Bwipo. Like, I feel like Bwipo is just better than I mean, I guess he did technically solo kill Bwipo when Bwipo completely like inted out of his mind, but like, is that really a solo kill? Like, do I feel good about that
solo killed Bwipo?
No, that's what
that's what he's talking about. That's what he's talking about.
That's what I'm talking about.
Okay, yeah.
Like, I'm saying that solo kill is like, it's not an
it was
inspiring
fraudulent.
solo. Yeah. Like, oh, well, Bwipo just ulted into the turret and died. Like, I guess like
it was a fraudulent solo kill for sure.
Yeah. I mean, it is what it is.
Put it on the stats.
I think as depressing as it is, Dom, I think it's really important to remember that North American players who have come up during the pandemic have not had the off-season training opportunities that North American players have typically had in terms of going to Korea. You know, last week Revenge was on Summoning Insight and talking about how he was able to go to Korea this winter for the first time, but even then he was in a really shitty like quarantine situation. It wasn't ideal. The experience he had was more difficult than it would be normally. These players really haven't had a chance to go to proper boot camps, right? Forever in their entire professional career, basically. And so before we dismiss all of these up and coming players, I think it's important to give them the off-season opportunities and or international experience that would allow us to judge their ability to grow, right? And I'm excited, even if EG doesn't make Worlds. Like, I assume Jojo Pyun going to Korea and being in Korean solo queue would help him a lot, you know, for a couple of months. I've seen tremendous growth from North American players who have done that in the past.
Yeah, like Keith McBrief, he got top 4 and then he came back to
Look,
NA.
I've also seen Golden Glue. Okay, it's not, but I'm just saying.
Okay, all right.
Some players benefit from it.
I was trying to steal man your point
from it.
I just
some
failed.
players don't benefit from it, but they haven't even had. Most of them haven't even had the opportunity in order to see if they can benefit from it or not, right?
I mean, I heard Summit say that Champions Queue is similar to Korean Challenger, so You know, maybe they don't even need to go to Korea
That
anymore.
seems like a Korean interview lie. But my Korean interview lie detector is going off right now.
Monty immediately went like, something has gone terribly wrong. All right. Well, I think that is most of the LCS that I wanted to hit on. We kind of had. I mean, is there anything else that we wanted to touch on before we move on from this?
No,
I'm fine with that. I mean, I could talk about LCS forever, but we'll save some for.
Let's talk about fun things instead, Dom.
Yeah,
Okay,
well,
sounds good.
We'll talk about fun things. Let's hop to it. A reminder that the jungle is presented by Lost Ark. Again, you can have the opportunity to join millions of players around the world hopping onto Lost Ark, pick multiple different classes. I myself am a governor, play the Deadeye play style with multiple different, I think there's 3 different styles, weapons that you play with: up close, long range, a big shotgun. Lots of fun if you like the overhead fixed camera, kind of just hack and slash, do it with your friends. Definitely something to check out. So again, thanks to our sponsor, Lost Ark, for making it happen. All right, elsewhere in the League of Legends world, we had a treat. Uzi came back yet again, the second time. I mean, he had played 1 game in the LPL earlier for Bilibili Gaming, but it was BLG versus V5, the top team in the LPL, and better known as the team that Rookie is on. And they had themselves a best of 3 that was so fun it was so fun. I normally get tired when I'm watching games. That game made me want to run through a wall and, more importantly, watch the next Bilibili game that I will set up here after this segment. But Victory 5, BLG, a great matchup, a great series, went the distance there. Dom, I'll defer to you on this one. This matchup was so good, but it was a battle of titans, and it felt like we got to see the class and the glory of Rookie just kind of gushing through here.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the main thing that I come to right now is like, how fucking good is Rookie still? Like, he just yeah, I mean, he just pops off like and the thing that's so impressive about him is that his laning is still really insane, which is something that normally you don't see. Like, normally the progression of players is they start off really good in lane, and as they get like more mature, I mean, like, think about other laners that have had like long careers, but careers that are much shorter than Rookies. Like, think about Caps, for example. He started off as this like really talented mechanical mid laner, and he's solo killing everyone. No one can lane against him, and then eventually they fade into being more of like a team player, and they take less risks, and they're more just about playing for the team and things like that. It just feels like so insane that Rookie is still a top tier laner, like especially on like mages and shit. He's a top tier laner, and he's what, like 9 years into his fucking pro career, into his like top level pro career. He's 9 years in. So he won Worlds like 5 years ago. I mean, compare that to almost any other mid laner in the world. You won't see longevity like this, and especially this type of longevity where they're just still fucking insane at that like raw skill test mechanics like style of play that, you know, normally favors the younger, more like upcoming players.
Yeah, and he's unquestionably the second greatest mid laner of all time. Could have a conversation about greatest, depending on the future for sure. Whether he's going to challenge Faker or not is a question. For me, he's the best Orianna player that is ever. I've consistently been impressed with his play on that champion. Normally, I find watching Orianna to be incredibly boring. When he plays it, I love watching it. He is amazing once again. In this series on that champion, we get to see his Ahri as well, which is a big factor in their win in the final game. I think the series is incredibly. It was looking pretty dire there for V5 at the start of Game 3, especially with what was going on with the early invade onto Karsa's Vi, which I thought was some really cool like jungle pathing and based off of the creation of pressure in the bot lane that the Ezreal Karma lane was also like shoved in, and I think they played out a kind of like set play super well against the Vi, and it put V5 in a very bad situation, but the solo lanes managed to carry it. Vi was able to do her job later in terms of lockdown. The single target lockdown in this comp is really interesting, and I think that V5 was correctly able to identify their win condition by using, not ult, Vi ult, charm, and these kind of single target CC spells against Uzi, and kind of nullify the lead. But it was a very compelling game overall, I thought.
Yeah, just constant. It was constant. Like, I can't believe they did that. There was times where PP God would step in front of damage shock blasts that were coming on through. There was I can only describe it as a no-look shock blast that Rich did as he was like at the Drake pit, where he was running to the right towards blue buff and shoots it backwards to hit Uzi, who thought he was, it was to catch Uzi off guard, because Uzi was also dodging everything.
Rich's triple kill at the end was fucking insane. I mean, the fact that V5 won against a Hextech Soul, very unlikely that they would be able to do that, but they had, I would say, the right kind of composition in order to make that happen, where they had strong poke, where maybe being slowed temporarily wouldn't make as big of a difference, or they were able to use the single target CC to kind of like overcome that difficulty. But it really is, especially that third game, is really, I think, an incredible win by V5.
The third game, which was the Orianna game? Was that the second game? Or
no, that was the Ari. The Ari game was the last game. Ari,
okay,
Jace,
the Orianna game, again, was a rookie highlight reel all in one. He
3v5
one of the decisive, yes, the 3v5, they had to defend the dragon, and he legit walked up into Fofo's face. Fofo was playing Zoe and said, "I dare you to hit, Sleepy Trouble Bubble," and Fofo missed, and then rookie went in and cleaned everything up. It was incredible. It was incredible.
And it's not hard to see. This is the thing that's great about LPL, is like when the teams are ahead, they just fucking win the game. So like, if you want to watch rookie pop off, you don't have to invest 45 minutes or an hour. The whole game is over in 24 minutes. You want to see rookie go 8-0-4 in 3v5 at Seoul? Like, that's a 24-minute experience right there. And just like the presence that he has, like, like that level of confidence. You can just look at rookie. He walks into three people, dodges one skill shot, flashes another, dodges the third one, kills two people. They take fucking Soul. They end the game. It's like, God damn, bro. You should probably not give this guy Orianna ever again. Like, don't let him play Orianna. He is too good at the champion.
Yeah. There was like another play he did. He put the ball down and then walked backwards and then flashed forwards and moved the ball like an inch, and it caught someone else off guard. They died. I think that was Dongo, because Dongo was still.
It was like between the two turrets in mid too. Yes. So he thought he was safe, and it was playing in the control warded brush by Raptors. It was very smart.
So good. It was so good. Anyway, that was a fantastic series to watch. Karsa on that squad as well for Victory 5, and Fotik, the bot laner for that one, finishing it up. On the opposite side, for BLG, Doggo and Uzi, right? So Doggo started the game. He's been playing most of the series. Uzi comes in as the substitute. Duos with Crisp, obviously Crisp world champion over with that PX, with Fofo, Weiwei, and Breathe. And they looked great. They looked great. It was just an out of this world performance by rookie and the rest of the squad that are, kind of running on all cylinders. And then they had another series BLG did against reigning world champions Edward Gaming, EDG, showing up. So in this game, you had Uzi starting all of the series. So you had Viper Mako against Uzi Crisp, I believe. And that one was an interesting one as well, as that one EDG come back and win that one. But dish out why this one was such a huge one here, Dom.
Well, I mean, I think the bot lane matchup is everything that people dream of. I mean, I don't think you can get a better bot lane matchup in any domestic league right now, or like a more historic one than Uzi versus Viper. It's like somebody who is considered the best AD carry in the history of the world, and the other one is one of the best AD carries right now. I mean, I know some people will
reigning world
Viper.
Champion,
debate Viper or Gumayushi, but he's also the reigning world champion, former or like reigning LPL champion coming in. So I feel like this is just like such a matchup where you see the names and how can you not watch? It's Viper versus Uzi. Like that's what it, like, you don't even have to think about BLG versus EDG. It is Viper versus Uzi. It is some of the best AD carries that, I mean, these players are probably going to go down as some of the best AD carries in the history of the game, right? And they're playing
not
against
only
each
that,
other.
but between these two series, you get 2 signature Uzi champions in Ezreal and Kai'Sa as well. These are champions that he is extremely well known for. And guess what? The other 2 games you get Uzi on Zeri, so you get to see him on a brand new, high mobility, high
which
mechanical
is an Uzi champion.
Yeah, it just feels like Zeri just feels like an Uzi champion, right? So, I mean, it was, I think, really exciting overall. And I want since I haven't watched all of Bilibili's games, Dom, it really, I thought Uzi did great in all the games basically that he played, and Doggo also did fine. And it just feels like to me, from these 2 best of 3s, it really felt like the AD carry was not the problem on this lineup in any sense, whether it was Doggo, whether it was Uzi. So was Doggo having off games earlier? Because I thought he was fine. I was a little surprised by the substitution actually in the first series.
He's somebody who I would consider to be like, so I don't think that he's getting subbed because he's playing bad. I think he's getting subbed because it's to bring in Uzi. Like it's like, all right, like this is Uzi time. Like this is a important best of series. Like, it changes things up. So like normally like subs are utilized in situations like that anyway. If they're like actually subs at play. So I think it's more just to bring in Uzi. I think Doggo's been like, I would say pretty high variance in a lot of his games. Like he's had some like super pop off performances. Like there's some Aphelios games where he's going absolutely nuts. And there's also just some team fights where he completely runs it down. So I think that's kind of just been the way that Doggo's been. But I think that BLG as a team, like like you said, it doesn't really matter which AD carry is playing. I think that the people that need to step up are Breathe and Fofo to me. I think that these are the 2 players that I really want to see play better, because in LPL, these were guys that were at the top of their role. I mean, most people would have considered Fofo a top 3 mid. I mean, there was a period where Scout wasn't in the conversation for being a top 3 mid. The top 3 mids in people's minds in LPL last year were Doinb, Knight, and then Fofo, because Fofo was the only reason RA was getting anything done. And, like RA was actually a top 5, top 6 team off his back, and he was having really hard carry performances there. Breathe on WE, one of the best top laners he was one of the best top laners in the world at a point. And especially the way that he was playing on like Camille, Akali, all these like really high skill top laners, he was being able to show how dominant he was. And right now, when you see them play together, they just feel like normal top and mid laners. Like they don't feel like anything special, which I think they're going to need to be if this team is going to do anything in playoffs. Because, I mean, we're about to get into playoffs. You have Weibo, who's falling off a little bit. We don't know how good they'll be. But V5, EDG, you have RNG. Like those are already 3 teams. I mean, it's pretty hard. Like if LNG gets back into form, there could be like a world where you might not make Worlds with a roster that's supposed to be a super team. Like this team is supposed to be able to potentially win Worlds, and it just hasn't been looking like it's at that caliber so far. Especially with EDG actually having Flandre back now, and Flandre I thought looked fine in the games that they played against Bilibili. They're just weird. There were just some very, I think, odd things about Bilibili overall. Like they would take fights with like crucial ults, like Heck ult down. A lot of times they go really deep and like overpress their advantages that they had. It felt like sometimes they weren't properly playing around the leads that Uzi was generating, because in several of these games, Uzi has massive leads early, like huge, that you would think would in historic Uzi games, those typically result in Uzi victories. So, and when we have games where like Uzi is losing and then also not even dying in said game, there has to be some fundamental issue with the way that these that Bilibili is approaching these games and not accelerating around the AD carry leads properly.
Yeah. Just for more clarification specifically on that role and how Uzi was playing, they had one more game. They already played one game this week for week number 9 against Ultra Prime. And Uzi finished 7, 8, and 16, 2 games of Jinx, and got outpointed in that second game against Elk, the bot laner of Ultra Prime. I think he was 8-3 in that one. So the move, I think the move then echoes Dom's assertion, where it's like they're trying to change the way that the team can play when they make those substitutions, not necessarily like this player's good, this player's bad. And for our viewers at home, LPL Playoffs will get locked in later this week. The way it works, it's a gauntlet, Dom, I believe, right? It's a gauntlet
it's the best. It's the best bracket in professional League of Legends right now. So it starts off at like a gauntlet style based off your rank in the regular season. So it's 10 teams make it out of the 17 teams. And then the 10th and 9th place team play the 7th and 8th. Winners play 5 and 6. And then winners of those matches play 3 and 4. And then it becomes double elimination for the top 4. So
from semifinals onward, it's double elim. So if you're seed 1 or seed 2, you're guaranteed to be in the double elim portion.
Yep. And then the 3rd and 4th versus the 5th and 6th, or whoever comes out of the 5th and 6th matchup, that will determine like who will fight the 1 and 2 for the double elimination. So there's 13 matches overall in the playoffs, regardless. Like it's always the same number. And you get to see a lot of like really interesting storylines. So for example, in 2021, last 2 years, the team that ended up winning, which was RNG in spring and EDG in summer, ended up losing the first round of their double elimination, going into the losers bracket and then coming up through the losers bracket. And that's why FPX was big favorites in the finals against both of them, because going into that final versus EDG in summer, FPX was 6-0. They hadn't dropped a game the entire playoffs, and they finished in first. So like they were massive favorites. So I think that just LPL playoffs just becomes super interesting because there's so many good matches. All of them are best of 5. And then the teams are really just not afraid to pull out unique picks. I mean, I think that that's one thing that having best of 3s really trains you for, is, you know, being able to play your first or second game in a series extremely aggressively and go with a creative draft. I think that just
tilt into oblivion because you lose one game.
Yeah, exactly.
You could stay mentally strong.
I mean, who knows? Like if they were playing best of 3s, I mean, maybe TSM would not be 2-11. You know, maybe they could be 0-13, which would be the dream. So that would be that'd be really insane. So yeah, I mean, LPL playoffs
just like T1, they wouldn't be undefeated if it was best of 1s. You know,
true.
That is true. That is true.
Or possibly if other teams fielded rosters against them. I don't know.
Speaking of T1 and that one there, Reddit Brian, that one always fucks me up. They unfortunately
Reddit Brian, your favorite commentator.
I will say, he's my favorite. Their branding is it's bro time. I love that. Hashtag bro day, bro time. It's like that's good branding.
Hashtag bro culture, Riot Games. Oh wait, never mind. That's a different type of.
And then they put out the unfortunately for Reddit Brian, they had to put out their Academy Bros out there because there was
it was a bro job this week.
Yeah.
There you go.
I don't think bro jobs were that bad, Monty. I don't know. Maybe Monty's had some bad bro jobs. Who knows?
You'll have to tell me who gives the best pro jobs, Tom, later.
TSM is really good at sucking right now, so I would say really mastered the art of the suck.
Brian had to put in their academy roster because COVID happened. T1 ran through them, but before that, they had their matchup against the Kwangdong Freaks, formerly Freaks, to make history. 15 matches in a row, maybe not games, but 15 matches in a row. And T1 able to do it. Monty, take it away in that series. What happened?
I mean, to me, I found this series like a lot less interesting than the LPL series overall. I think most people will focus probably on Kai'Sa mid from Faker, which was his 71st champion that he's played at the professional level, which is pretty insane because that's almost half the champions in League of Legends that he has now played in his long and illustrious career. What's interesting to me about T1 is a couple episodes ago, we talked about the KT game that they played, the T1 KT game, where KT did surprisingly well despite being a pretty bad team in recent weeks.
Yeah.
And a lot of that, if you actually look at the compositions they were running, it was basically what CLG ran this past week when they played against Golden Guardians, which is having Ahri and the Rek'Sai in the jungle and then the Kai'Sa in the bot lane. And what these are like long range, basically can go over walls pick compositions. And I think prior to this, T1, and actually nobody was really using Kai'Sa very heavily in LCK. And I think T1, by almost losing to this bad team running this composition, realized how strong these picks can be. And so ever since then, Faker has basically, I think this last week, he only played Ahri, Galio, and Kai'Sa mid. And you're seeing T1, ever since that game with KT, very aggressively move into high mobility pick compositions. And while I don't think anybody's going to say Kai'Sa mid is going to become the new normal, I think overall you look at the kind of poke damage that you can achieve with a W Evolve Luden's Kai'Sa and see the damage that can put out, and then the all-in potential if you hit a squishy carry and you combo that with a Jace in the top lane, it's very dangerous right now, and you can really easily turn games on their head by hitting a couple Kai'Sa Ws. And it's probably very broken, especially because you get that 75% or whatever massive CDR reduction once it's evolved. And the burst damage it puts out is absurd. And this Kai'Sa's probably moving into the realm of first pick / ban status at this point in time. Maybe not in the West, because it actually takes a good amount of coordination. Like you're not going to fight front to back team fights with this Kai'Sa. You're not going to do that and be super successful. But if you are an Asian team that plays Vex, or you play Jace well, or you can whip out the Rek'Sai if necessary. You have other long range pick or engage tools. Ahri, she's really strong. And you just have to position yourself in a way where you're getting either huge chunks off their backline or killing certain members before you actually engage in these fights, which is not something that, as the Golden Guardians 100 Thieves game showed us, LCS teams are super good at doing. But if you are good at doing it, it is fucking devastating, basically.
Yeah. I mean, we'll have to see. I think that Kai'Sa mid is probably, like, I don't see what advantage Kai'Sa mid has over something like Corki. It's like, I mean, Corki was
I don't think it's great. No.
Yeah, but I can see it definitely going bot lane a lot. I mean, I think that there's specific combos that have been in the game for a while, and normally when there's these new champions, or not new champions, but if champions come back into the meta, you gotta, it really tests teams' memory to see, like, do they remember what was actually good with these champions before? Because there's been enough League of Legends at this point where you can go back really easily and identify trends in compositions. So something that I liked that COG did, for example, this weekend, was they paired the TF with the Kai'Sa. So obviously TF doesn't do that much damage in general, especially if you're going Everfrost into Rapid Fire Cannon. You're not really a huge damage dealing champion, because the way that TF really functions is as a utility champion, and the way you supplement your team's magic damage is then by having a Kai'Sa that goes this like hybrid poke build. And then so like that's already like a good comp right there in terms of damage type. But then furthermore, the TF being able to ult into places and land gold cards on people enables Kai'Sa to ult like after level 11 and get picks on people that are not really that far out of position. So people have to relearn how to play against champions like that. So I want to see which teams actually are able to
also provide vision for Kai'Sa Ws as well. I mean, there's a ton of big advantages, right?
Yeah, so that's a synergy we've seen before. That was something that before you could not give a team. It's like, oh, don't give them TF and Kai'Sa. When they were both first pickable champions, TF was super broken, Kai'Sa was super broken. This was how a lot of teams like to draft, and I think it's still really effective. I think that this is a strategy that pretty much only fell out of favor because Kai'Sa was bad. People couldn't really figure out a way to make Kai'Sa work, and when Kai'Sa's a weak lane phase, things like Jinx and Aphelios are completely dicking her in the bot lane, people will just drop it and they just start trading long-range ADs. So I want to see which teams are able to actually develop strategies around the Kai'Sa and enable it. Because I feel like what happens a lot in the West is people pick champions because they're OP, but they don't develop comps that allow the champions to thrive. So they end up with comps of like a bunch of strong champions, but all the champions don't really have synergies. So it makes the game also a lot harder to play because you don't know what you're actually playing for. You're like, okay, I mean, Kai'Sa wants to poke, but this other mid laner like wants to like, you know, play front to back. Like it's like a Kai'Sa and an Orianna or some shit. So I want to see teams actually develop these like comps around the new champions that are coming into the meta. But yeah, I don't think Kai'Sa mid specifically is super good. I think it could function into LeBlanc, but I don't necessarily want to see too much Kai'Sa mid from other players. I don't think it's that strong. I think that Corki is pretty much a better version of it mid lane a lot of the time.
Yeah, and to be clear, I'm double checking the stats here, but it wasn't the cleanest game from Faker. A couple of those ults he went in, it was to kill Teddy. It was to be like, all right, I'm assassinating you, and then I'm
You're fine making that trade, I think, if you're Faker.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's that bad.
Yeah. It wasn't like he had a Galio game earlier where he.
The thing is that in this particular game, like if he kills Teddy, there is no more damage. Like they have fucking Ornn. So, you know, if he does his job and makes that trade, I think it's fine.
Teddy played well in games 1 and 2, both on the Aphelios. And then in game 3, also on the Aphelios, was just getting picked out by Faker time and time again, and there was no damage there. Yeah. So that was that. Cool. I think this is a good time for us to bring up our next segment, the fan favorite. It's God or Dog. As we think about Global League of Legends, who's playing well, who's not playing well, who do we want to give the shout outs to? So I'll give you guys a second to think about it, and then I'll put Dom on the spot. Dom, who is your God of the week? Let's go positive.
I think my God of the week is just going to be Summit again. I mean, like this guy is
right.
He's just so fucking good. Like he's just shit. Like I don't think you can have a much better Gnar versus Tryndamere game than what he had. I mean, it obviously takes the enemy misplaying to some degree as well, but like I don't really know what I would fault Someday on. He just looks so fucking good right now. So I think my I'm gonna, you know, if I'm going first, I'm gonna go for the obvious one right here.
I agree. I think like it's pretty clear. Like Summit is on I think barring some absolute catastrophe to end this season, which does seem very unlikely to occur. And even if he plays badly for the rest of the split, what little there is left, it's hard to imagine that he doesn't get MVP. I don't even think there's like another player really in the conversation for MVP.
It was Berserker earlier, but I think that was about it.
No, I don't think it's the level of difference and the fact that when he's behind, he finds good ways to play his champions. When he's ahead, he absolutely, you know, galaxy smashes the other team. And in terms of actual value, if you think about MVP as, you know, I mean, he's certainly like the highest wins above replacement player. Like if you replace him with literally anyone else, like C9's a significantly worse team. So I agree with that.
Monty, then are you going with the same one, or you just have a different one?
No, I mean I would go with the same one overall. I think that would be my decision also. I think the other one you have to point out is probably Rookie this week, who was just absolutely phenomenal in the series against Bilibili. Just so crazy good. It would, again, in a similar way to Summit, it would be hard to imagine. Rich obviously had a very good game on Jace, but that game 3, it'd be hard to imagine them winning with a different mid laner that wasn't Rookie on the Ahri.
Yes, that again. I love that one. That one's great. That one made me love League of Legends again. For me,
see, Dom, the only thing it took to rekindle your love of LoL was watching some Asian LoL. It's weird how it does that. It's weird how it does that.
I'm not gonna lie, it was just like, you know, LCS is very procedural. You're like, okay, they're gonna do this next. All right, let's prepare ourselves for the throw. Okay, it was just scrappy, taking it like just away from everyone, and just go watch that game 2, Rookie on Orianna. Just go watch that whole series, V5 and BLG. For me, I'll strike while the iron's hot. Let's give some props to a team that is on a winning streak. I think a 3-game winning streak. Let's give it to Counter Luger Gaming. Luger finishing the weekend at 10-2. 2 games of Kai'Sa staying further back, but leading CLG to a perfect weekend, which I think it's actually their second 2-0 weekend. So they've done a lot of 0-2 weekends, and then they've had 2 2-0 weekends. So CLG doing pretty great, and it has been on their pickup of Luger, who has been by and far their best player, and now I think worthy of a standout performance if we're taking away Summit. Like, okay. with that, I think it's time for our dog of the week. Dog of the week. Who should
it has to be tactical, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'll go for somebody else. That's who
No,
immediately
no.
jumps to mind.
It was Hooney. It was obviously Hooney's fault. I learned from High.
Yeah.
Thank God. Thank God.
All right. You can take tactical. Who do you got, Dom?
Well, look, let me explain about tactical.
All right.
People were so fucking high on tactical because they played like they played the enchanter compositions where he had like 70% of his team's damage or whatever on the Jinx, and literally everybody was just all in on providing shields, heals, resources, protection for tactical. And when he doesn't get that, I think he makes super questionable plays. I don't think it's a coincidence that one of Team Liquid's goals was to replace tactical during the offseason. I think that as a primary carry, he is incredibly problematic, and he isn't somebody that you can build a team around. He is too, I think, capricious overall in his play. It's very difficult to rely on him.
I don't know who you would build around on that TSM roster, because I know you had MVP and Spica, but he was an enabler to lanes that were around, accelerator to lanes around, and was the best at it last season. But I don't know who you would build around. I think they had to guess and try and figure it out, and I think they got it a lot wrong. Other than Hooney in the top lane, who presumably is expensive.
I just find it odd because TSM should know who this guy is because he literally played for their academy team previously, right? So,
no, those guys are gone.
all those people who knew.
It was like, hey, we got to go get our boy back on at TSM. I heard he might be out of a job. All right, see y'all later. Dude, the fact that Parth and other leadership that made those decisions, Lena, get away with like what seems like scot-free, and we're just shitting on the current TSM management leadership, astounds me. It astounds me. It doesn't take away from.
They've said that they didn't want this roster.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, I think that's why, because they said publicly, they're like, hey, this is the roster we wanted. Like, we wanted like a
Lena said that
Jensen
very
Doublelift
specifically.
Vulcan. Yeah, we wanted Jensen Doublelift Vulcan, Spica Hooney. That's the roster we wanted, and TSM didn't go for it. So like, we obviously don't know if that's true, but if we take it at face value, then yeah, for sure they're on a better side of it than this. Like,
hard to take anything at face value when we weren't doing interviews beforehand, and now I know that the owner sits outside and forces people to do interviews.
Yeah, nice.
They're pretty good at sleight of hand as I hold cards and I'm shuffling them. Dom, who you got as dog of the week?
Ooh, it's tough. So I think that my dog of the week for this week, it's gonna be a little bit of a surprising
did you like Power
one.
of Evil's Leandries into
No, I'm gonna
into Banshee's Veil Azir build? Did you enjoy that?
I didn't like it that much, but I'm gonna go with Arrow. I'm gonna go with Arrow
Again.
Of my
Oh my God. 2 weeks in a row.
I really just like I'm pretty disappointed in the way that this guy is playing. Like, he's not dealing damage. He's not laning well. It's really surprising because like, you play with this guy in solo queue, he's like top 5. He's one of the best AD carries in solo queue. He plays versus all these players in solo queue with like random supports, and it seems to always go pretty well. So I think it's really curious to me that he's just running it down consistently. And like, even like the plays around the lane don't make much sense. I don't think his team fighting has been very good. I mean, Immortals as a team is super weird, right? You look at Xerxes, Powerview. I mean, Xerxes was considered one of the best jugglers in EU at a point. Powerview was considered one of the best mids in EU at a point. Arrow is one of the best AD carries in the world at a point. You put all 3 of them together, somehow they're coming away with this dive where they're like, they're not able to dive NA players with 4 people. It's just like, no one knows to wait for the wave. Not one person could be like, hey, we should wait for the wave before we start doing the dive thing because they have no teleports. So
sorry,
if we just wait for the wave.
That was Revenge's fault, as the fans have told me.
I mean, to be fair, I think Revenge, like, he definitely should be able to use his lead topside
I agree
more.
with that.
But,
no, I agree. That's what I said. I think he doesn't push his advantage enough. But, you know, I don't know how fucking tilted he is being in this game. I would be just tilted out of my mind.
Well, it's okay. Like, his teammates got to be tilted by him in the game before, where it's like, oh well, I guess they have Summit, so shit. Like, I guess we just lose. So we will see.
That's fair. I do think the whole situation on Immortals is like, it's very weird right now. this team should be a lot better than it is. Like if you actually look at the individual parts, like it's not a bad roster, and it's disappointing that they are performing at the level they are.
Yeah, I mean, it's because of their names, right? It's not because of anything they've done recently. It's not like when you looked at PoE last year, you're like, damn, bro, if he just had Arrow, who was like an amateur, who was doing pretty well, but not like what you'd expect from somebody who's like about to take over LCS. You see that roster, you put it together, you're like, I don't really know if this is an upgrade. I mean, I think losing Gyoto hurt this team a fucking ton. I think that this guy gave them some direction, and now they just look like they're completely out of sorts.
Gyoto just abandoned his children, by the way. He literally just came to America, brought Xerxes and Destiny with him, and then just went out for some cigarettes and then just never returned.
Yeah, I would do the same if those were my kids. Those are just not the kids. Like those are some kids where you're like, damn. Like,
he brought them here. Nah.
Yeah, but it's like he didn't want to bring them here, you know? Like it
was the green card play.
I think he did. But
he married in.
He just abandoned them on Immortals. It's actually depressing.
Yeah,
it's understandable. If those are your kids, like, you know, like you're the dad that's going to like the Sunday baseball games, and your kid is just the worst one on the field. Like, you know what? Sometimes you just gotta go get some cigarettes.
You know what? Give me that starting pitcher. Can I get the starting pitcher?
Yeah.
You can take my kid. All right, cool. Thanks, Immortals. I think for me,
there you have it. If Dom has kids and he's disappointed, he'll just go adopt some other kids. Some ones who are good at baseball.
Yeah, but I mean, you can really spin it because you'll be like, yeah, my kids are adopted, and people will be like, oh, nice, Dom, nice. It's like, yeah, I just don't want them anymore.
Generous person,
like, yeah,
you're the hero America needs.
Yeah.
For me, I'm gonna go with FlyQuest Johnson. I remember specifically in that CLG game, Afro was leading the team as much as he could while they were behind, and then I think Johnson took the Kaisa W straight to the face and then like walked away from Afro and then died immediately, and that was the end of the game. That is how CLG won that game. And I remember thinking, like, I don't know what you were thinking there. And then in their next game, just wasn't dishing out damage. I think it was a down week for Johnson, who has been middle of the road doing his job. And so I think a little time in the doghouse will be good for Johnson the rest of FlyQuest as they go 0-2 for this week. All right. Next up, we have Game of the Week. Give me your most hype game of the week. And I'll give you a little bit of time unless you guys know which one it is. Do you know which game of yours is the one that you want to look for? Dom.
Oh, I got a banger right here.
I got one.
All right,
okay.
Good. Go ahead,
go Dom.
So mine is TSM versus Cloud9. Oh, it's going to be so fucking funny.
That actually will be great.
I love it. That's going to be my game of the week. That's one I would not be able to take my eyes away from. Like, gotta love it.
Monty.
I actually will truly enjoy that game as well. But on the other side, the very last game of the LCK regular season is T1 versus DRX. It's the number 1 versus number 3 team. Hopefully, because apparently it's actually impossible for any LCK team to play remotely, which should be quite concerning to people with playoffs coming up, that playoffs might actually just be ruined by anyone getting COVID in a country rife with COVID right now because they can't play from their team facility for reasons that nobody knows or understands. So hopefully this is like
pretty bad in Asia right now. I mean, LPL went full remote. Today it was announced LPL is going full remote until the end of the season.
Wish LCK would do that so we actually have playoffs, you know?
Yeah.
Because right now the policy is just going to be, you know, if anybody on T1 gets COVID, it's just fucking over. And seems like all the teams are really struggling with that right now through no fault of their own, through the fact that they are in a surge. I think that T1 versus DRX hopefully will be a great game. Hopefully it could be a very cool preview of playoffs overall. It is, I would say, unlikely, but technically possible that could challenge for second place. It will also, I would say, likely be a 17-0 T1 going up against their best chance to actually lose a best of 3. So there's a lot of cool storylines going into that one for sure.
Yeah, big surge happening right now in the Asian countries. So I'm interested to seeing like how that's going to affect LCS finals that has already been, proudly touted to be in person over in Houston. Hopefully things will stay safe and we'll be able to have that great momentous occasion of bringing esports back to in person. For me, well, you kind of took my thunder there, Dom. Instead of game of the week, in terms of time of the day and time of the week, it's game of the week. The bottom two teams do battle at the very last game. Like, this is the worst for a broadcast. This is the worst for a team. When you're in last place and you have the final game of the day of the final day of the week, it's Immortals and TSM, 9th place versus 10th place, battling out for the Suck Bowl here. Is it going to be Revenge's fault that they lose or win? I mean, only if they lose, but not if they win. Yeah, and also maybe we see Wild Turtle come back because Arrow's been in the doghouse 2 weeks in a row.
I think we see Wild Turtle come back. That's what I think.
Damn, bro.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's
revenge game, dude. It's a revenge game. He gets to anytime he gets to play against TSM. That should be an opportunity.
Yeah, I'm sure that Wild Turtle is the type of guy that will use that as like some strict motivation to win.
He
just
seems
gonna
like a
be
really
hyped
angry
up.
person.
Yeah, he's just gonna be like giving a speech backstage. It's like, we got to do it for me. Yeah. Like, hell no, he's not gonna do that shit. What?
I love Turtle, dude. I hope that he
Yeah,
gets.
but he's so chill. Like, no, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying that he's just not the type of guy that's gonna
be fueled by revenge.
Yeah.
Sure. Last week we asked you all at home to give us a couple comments. Thank you for all the nice comments. There was a lot of really nice comments for everyone.
Thank you for all the mean comments about dGon too. I love those.
There were a lot of nice comments. There's actually one really there was one going after Dom, and eventually that guy got he got teamed up on and I think stopped posting.
Wait,
but there was
that? I didn't see it. Or was that the Magic Resist one?
No, it was not the Magic Resist one. There was, it's gone. Someone must have deleted it, but it was in the jungle one, dude.
Oh, nice.
I'm looking. It had the most replies. But the most thoughtful one here was one comparing to Dota 2. And I liked this one. And Monty, I think you have great esports historical knowledge. And then Dom, I think you'll be able to put this one into practice. I was wondering if you'd be able, this is from Ichigo Saitama, anime shit. I was wondering if you'd be able to talk about the limitations of league drafting, especially in comparison to Dota 2. For instance, when you look at the international, where 113 out of 121 heroes were picked, which is 93% of possible picks, comparatively to Worlds last year, only 80 out of the 157 were picked, which is 50.9%. Why is that, and why is it only half the champs that get played? Basically, there's a little bit more, but that's the general consensus. So I like that one. I like this cross-sport reference, and also when we get into draft and seeing like why teams tighten up a little bit as we go to Worlds compared to kind of trying to catch people off guard.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty simple. I mean, it's just the way that the games function differently, especially in the lane phase. Like, you don't have the ability to deny in League of Legends. So if you don't have the ability to contest the wave or fight in any way, it's not like you can deny and like hold the wave at a certain situation. You're just going to get slow pushed on. Eventually, people are going to just look to dive you. And you don't really have much agency at all in the game. Whereas in Dota, you can block minions to make them go later to lane. You can deny minions. So you can do a lot more to manipulate your wave than you can in League of Legends. League of Legends is one-dimensional in terms of like how you're able to do things. Also, the way that the map is set up, there's two people that are essentially roaming with the 4 and 5 positions roaming. Whereas like in competitive, it's like you pretty much have a support that goes bot. And because of the way that the game technically works in League of Legends, like the bot turret has no armor and magic resist anymore, because there was a time where there was 2v1s possible anywhere on the map. But Riot specifically made it so that can't be a thing because they thought people didn't like watching 2v1s. So yeah, up until 5 minutes, the top and mid turret have a shit ton of armor, extra armor and magic resist that the bot turret doesn't have. So it essentially forces people to go bot lane, forces the most important lane, the duo lane, to be bot lane. And therefore, like, you can't do as interesting setups where like the support and the jungler are essentially playing together and they're playing around a lane that might be a little bit weaker. So I just think that there's less flexibility in the game because of how the game is designed, which leads to less champions being drafted because there's certain conditions you need to be able to meet to play League of Legends at a pro level.
And also to that point, it's not the reason why that there is a duo lane is because Riot basically intentionally created and balances around hard roles in League of Legends, which is not true in Dota. And therefore in Dota, there is a lot more flexibility in how you can use the heroes in the game in different roles, basically. So I think one of the things that's interesting about League of Legends is that it's easier to have one-to-one comparisons between players because they're playing specific roles, which I think is great, honestly, for the professional esports scene, because we can have, I think, more interesting debates or like concrete debates, I would say, as we compare players compared to Dota. The other thing is itemization in League of Legends is quite different than Dota. In Dota, a lot more of the items are based around active abilities or ways that kits are changed based on the items that they have, which leaves you a lot more flexibility in the way that you can pick heroes because you can alter them pretty dramatically with the items that you pick. Whereas in League of Legends, it's better now than it used to be, but they're basically stat sticks, right? Which is not, it's not true in Dota, or not as true, I should say. So I think these factors are the ones that really come into play with League compared to Dota.
Yeah.
Although I also say that I don't need the champion diversity, right? There's enough champion diversity in League of Legends for me overall that it's not. People try to talk about it as being like, oh, this is highly desirable, and I'm like, is it? I like discrete roles. I like players in discrete roles because I think for me, it's more fun to talk about player comparisons in that way.
I think what would be interesting is because when it comes to champion diversity, what I like are the moments where a team like pulls out a pick. That moment where they surprise you, that is what I like. And so Dota does that almost all the time. Whereas League, you don't do that as much, and you could probably go back to the past several world championships and count how many times they were like, oh wow, we didn't see this coming. Like this is a jungle Jax, not a top Jax that we've been seeing, or whatever it is.
It's rare, but at the same time, when it does happen in League, it's highly memorable. Think about MF support in 2016 at Worlds. That was an incredible surprise, right?
So I think the problem here is that what's Riot's reaction to that? Every single time one of these things happens, they are like almost instantly nerfed out of the game. Like,
it's true.
We saw the same thing happen when Rumble was a jungler. Rumble was like, it went from being a terrible jungler to being the best jungler in the game, unless you're Freak. To being,
I knew it was coming.
Of course.
We almost made it. We almost made it, Monty.
I knew it was coming.
But then to being like, and then they just nerfed it patch by patch, and now it's like barely playable. So like Riot just does this thing where whenever a champion comes up in a role that it's not supposed to come up in, we saw the same thing even dating back to season 2. I mean, when I was playing on Dignitas, one of the things that we were most famous for was running comps that had very unique identities. So there was a tournament, IPL 4, for example, where we played supports in solo lanes. Like we were one of the first teams to ever play supports in solo lanes. We played Lulu top and Soraka mid with a hyper carry Kog'Maw, and I would play like a tank jungler with it. And we had a specific strategy designed about this. Instantly, that shit is nerfed. Like anytime something comes out that is deemed OP, that is not in the box that League of Legends wants it in, that Riot wants it in, they instantly nerf it out of the game. So like if supports are being played in solo lanes, you normally see them gone. If they rise in popularity, they're gone. If champions that are not supposed to be junglers are becoming junglers, so for example, like Morgana and Rumble at MSI, they're gone almost instantly. We saw the same thing with Talon, for example.
We saw the same thing with IWDominate when he didn't behave the way that Riot wanted to, and they nerfed him out of the game.
Yeah, they nerfed him out. They nerfed me out of the game. So, I mean, it is what it is. It's just what it is. It's just what Riot does. Riot doesn't like the huge amount of diversity. They actively balance against diversity.
All right. Well, there you have it. Again, wanted to give a shout out to our commenters and followers of the show that have been supporting throughout. Make sure you get those comments in there. We'll have a segment for y'all. Again, another episode down, a whole world of League of Legends, and there's a decent amount to talk about. Final thoughts, Monty.
Looking forward to that T1 DRX game. See if T1 ends the season
TSM C9 game to see if the team survives another week without Reginald, coming down. And I mean, I guess what's the most PC way to say this? And exuding his wrath upon his team. Let's say that.
Visiting his displeasure.
Right.
Is how we say it in polite company. Visiting his displeasure.
Right.
Yes.
Well, I'll be on site on Sunday. I'll be on site to have a chat with whoever TSM decides to give me for interviews. You can catch those on my YouTube channel. You can catch Dom on his stream. You can catch Monty and all of his content on Insight on Esports for Horsemen. And of course, you can catch more League content here on Dexerto. Make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss any of the content coming out here. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. We'll catch you all next time for more jungle content. See ya.